It's April 20th, 2016.
This is Idle Thumbs 259. I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Nick Breckon.
I'm Jake Rodkin.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hey.
Nick and I played Dark Souls 3 this weekend.
Yeah, you guys streamed a thing. It's the first time
I know.
There's been a stream in ages.
Yeah, it's almost been a year since there was any activity on the Idle Thumbs Twitch channel.
Since the Danielle days?
Yeah. With Danielle and Sean, I think both streamed Bloodborne.
Okay.
For a while, like a year ago. Yeah. So
apparently we only stream from software games that make us hate ourselves.
Yeah, that's true. We played for 5 hours?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, we played for 5 hours. Nick pretty much played.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ended up.
If you missed this and would like to watch it, you can find it on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/idlevideos, or you can find the Twitch version of it at Twitch, which is where we streamed it, at twitch.tv/idlethumbs. And I think we'd like to do more streams again. We used to do them. Nick, you and I especially used to do a bunch when we were living together.
We did those Crusader
really
King streams.
And then, in the old Idle Thumbs office, we did the Crusader King streams. This was really fun. You made a lot of progress. I don't know if you made a lot of progress or not, but it felt like...
You played a lot of Dark Souls.
It felt like you learned a lot and got a lot better at Dark Souls.
I mean, for one, you handicapped me severely throughout the process of that by feeding me drinks. So that
helped you.
Sure. But then also we fed all of our points into the luck stat, which was a choice. I mean,
what?
In an RPG, you have to assume that's going to be a hindrance. But I think in this case, especially, we realized what a disaster that was.
Yeah, stream viewers were violently angry.
Well,
some of them were very abused.
I'm retroactively violently angry.
Because it seems like a good choice. You'd be really lucky.
Well, that's what we thought.
Yeah.
We kind of were.
Apparently, it was
coincidentally
the actually most worthless stat.
Yeah.
Legitimately just throwing points into the toilet.
I mean, in a Fallout game, luck actually factors into the combat. In this game, it's just you get a tiny percentage chance of finding an item that's better, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just does nothing
also,
for your actual
our character started with luck as his lowest stat anyway, which meant that even after pumping all of your souls into it,
he still wasn't very good.
It was still just fine compared to your other stats.
Yeah. For a man with a green face, he should have been luckier.
True.
He's not really fulfilling the promise. No. So we played this on the stream and got probably further than we should have, I would guess, based on how destroyed we were as a character and as a human. But then also, I played some afterwards and then realized, what a mistake we had made because
with luck?
Oh yeah, because I mean, well, for instance, I watched my girlfriend Janelle play. She played through basically the stuff that we played through, the first, I guess, 2-3 bosses. Mm-hmm. And she just picked warrior class and then just started putting she did the thing you do. You put all the points into vigor, which gives you more health. Yeah. Her health bar was twice the size of our health bar on the second boss.
See, I think that made for a good stream though, because you had to, by the time you beat that tree boss, you had to basically be perfect at it. Not perfect. I mean, you took hits, but you had to really execute on that fight.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, you know what? It was nice because I got some people tweeting at me saying man, I played Dark Souls 3, all the way through, and then I watched your stream and realized some stuff about bosses I didn't even know. So now I'm replaying it, and
so now I'm putting it all on luck.
Right, now I've realized what I need to do.
Yeah,
be dumb.
So I have a question for you. I think the thing that you suffered from the most, it's weird saying you, even though you're the one who's playing. I always want to say we, but I didn't do shit. But it was the thing that you suffered from the most. I think probably, and chat would probably agree, in addition to the luck thing, that was sort of a weird pseudo troll on our part, but was lack of patience and sort of stopping and observing, so probably at least the first half of the stream, you basically didn't pick up any souls or items. Much to the
oh man,
just wailing frustration of chat, and then that obviously also comes into play just when fighting enemies in terms of not rushing in and trying to get too many hits in. Did you feel that when you were playing on your own and not with an audience watching you for the sake of entertainment and another person in this case me there watching over your shoulder, Was that different?
When I was watching Janelle play, I was screaming, "Pick up the soul! What are you doing? You just ran past the souls! Like, what are you?
Right.
You Jesus!" Like, I was basically doing what chat was doing to us.
Right.
And then, yeah. So,
but when you
were alone,
did you?
When I was just playing myself, no, I was taking my time. To the max. So yeah, I do. It probably was a symptom of just like wanting to get to the next thing, so that I wasn't getting stuck in the same rut. I mean, I definitely had an existential fear going into this about just like, I don't know if I'll be able to get past any of this, and this stream could be like,
if I'd been
maybe
playing,
hilarious for a little bit, but then also maybe just the worst Dark Souls stream ever.
Nick Breckon, yeah.
Right? I mean, like that's a hole that you can stay in for a while.
That probably would have ended up still being a
eventually-
fairly entertaining stream. I would have just upped the frequency of drinks made.
That's true. Yeah, and it might have been shorter because we might have passed out. I think, I think when you're, I think when people are playing alone, or at least when I was playing alone, you definitely are more careful just by that, But in any case, I completely understand what people were going on about when they were watching us play. Especially, I watched a stream. The guy that does that sort of organizes those Conan O'Brien, like Let's Play type things. Where like, does sort
I assume he's a producer or something.
Yeah, he just streams, and it just popped up in my YouTube feed, and I was like, all right, I'll just watch this and see like what he was doing. And I was screaming at him in my brain.
Oh, really?
Because he was playing through the same stuff.
Yeah.
And just being a dummy. But like, we were probably 10 times as bad as he was, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I think
you've just already played it now.
That's clearly an incredibly common reaction, because we've gotten a lot of tweets since then from, there was one person who was like, that stream was really great and hilarious. Anyway, I couldn't stand to watch it, so I had to turn it off. But good job.
Yeah.
And it's like, those two things feel like such contradictory reactions, but they're clearly not.
Right. The thing that was infuriating watching him was when he would miss things and, sort of play the game badly. The thing that was hilarious was then he would just go into like a really innocent area. Like, remember that huge church with the NPC that I killed? That I shouldn't have killed?
Yeah.
Yeah. He ran into that room and was just like, oh, this is going to be horrible. Oh no. Oh, this is the worst. And everyone in that chat was just like, oh, this is funny. He's just going to stand here thinking this is like a boss, and then it's just going to be fine. And like, so it just seems like basically everything is just negative inversed in terms of like anything that's actually hard is incredibly frustrating to watch somebody do, but anything that's just incredibly easy or totally innocent is hilarious in the hands of a baby.
Right.
But I don't know. Yeah, I think like being patient is just definitely the key to unlocking that. Like we talked about it on the cast, but like I think it is a sort of fitting analogy to fighting games, right? Where I think I am not good at fighting games simply because I will not have the patience to stand still, like in my brain, prepare for the idea that maybe I shouldn't just rush in and like kick a guy,
Right.
Maybe I should like try to parry an attack or like do the thing, like anticipate what they're going to do, what a fighter does. And this game really is just a series of fighting game encounters. Like, especially having played Bushido Blade recently.
Right.
That game feels very much like this, but in just a like one-on-one context, like a player versus player thing.
The difference for me is that a fighting game is sort of best experienced in a multiplayer setting. And in multiplayer, you can't really, you have no influence over the flow of the game. I mean, you do, but you only have half of the influence. Whereas in Dark Souls or any game like it, you can just decide, I'm going to just hold back for a while.
Yeah.
And you're not being a jerk to the guy who's actually playing you and like, could you play me instead of not playing? And so I think it's one of the reasons fighting games have always been tough for me, for the reason that you stated, or at least that style of fighting game. Whereas I have gotten into, like Demon Souls and Dark Souls before, because you can still take them at your own pace. You can just hang back. If there's an enemy, you can just watch them.
Yeah.
And, they will operate like a video game NPC, not like they will.
Sometimes.
They will be closer to how a person works than most enemies in other kinds of video games in this genre, for sure. But there will still, like if you don't aggro them, they'll still just stand there.
The thing that I like about Dark Souls enemies is that they always seem to have like the low percentage attack that they just hold back for like a weird thing that you do. For instance, like the Soup Man, which is this, we call this the giant dude who has like I guess a
cast iron bowl.
Yeah, it's like the thing you like grind spices in, like a mortar, you know, or, and I don't,
or a pestle.
Yeah, it's like an enormous, and so like I feel like there's always the thing that they're just holding back for like a very edge case behavior on the player side. And in that case, it's just, if you try to run past this guy and he's done like X number of things, he just throws the soup bowl at your face. I'm thinking of the throwing action. The smashing one that's the really classic soup man.
This guy
but
it
is distressing.
He just like smashes you just with both hands with his huge cast iron pot and then just keeps smashing you until you're dead. And it's really distressing. It's like watching a movie with a really brutal murder just depicted right on screen. And
is it a moment similar to when your head gets chainsawed off for the first time in RE4?
Sort of.
Yeah,
no,
kind of.
Not really.
Okay.
Not for me.
Not really.
I
but
could see someone saying that, but for me, the difference is that is like an unbelievably shocking, surprising moment that just like happens. It's like a jump scare almost. Whereas this is like he just keeps bludgeoning you, and you see your health bar like go down, go down, go down, go down, and it's like you can't get up, so you just have to sit there, and it's like watching a blunt object trauma murder again in like a very realistic film where it's like, oh my god, I get it, like the person's gonna die, stop showing me this, but you just keep seeing the head being caved in, and it's really distressing. That's how this felt to me.
You keep seeing the head being caved in.
I mean, it's not as graphic as that, but it kind of feels like it because you see your health bar go down. So it's like...
Definitely feels like that when you're playing.
Well, I wasn't playing, so I can only imagine what it felt like when you were actually playing. Also, how has there never been like a like 3D action platformer called Mortar and Pestle, where like the mortar character has like an actual mortar,
right.
and then like how is that not a thing? And you like choose which one to play, and the other one follows you around and has AI attacks.
Then occasionally you combine to create a like spicy
mortar
brew.
jumps on Pestle's back and like shoots a big like a hero shot.
Yeah. I would be interested to
that game's chance has come and gone. I'm sorry to say.
I know it was totally PS1.
Yeah, that was like 2005.
Maybe
4.
First half of PS2 era.
Yeah. It's competing against Blinks the Time Sweeper and Psychonauts.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. I want to play this game to the extent that we would be able to get to like a PvP encounter, because I'm really curious to see what that feels like.
Yeah.
Which I've never played it. I have never engaged with these sort of multiplayer aspects.
I haven't really either. It's
stuff,
incredibly
I don't even really know what it is.
To me,
You know, I mean, that it is stressful to know that it's out there and that it's another problem, like a big problem. Apparently, a big problem apparently is that people will come into your game and kill you. Which, as if you needed more people, like, and things killing you in this game. But, like, I guess that will happen. But then also, you can fight back, and people will actually,
you can, like, team up.
Yeah, and people actually, this is, like, a whole aspect of the game that I've just never... You know, I've played this game for, I say this game, whatever, the franchise, the Dark Souls, Bloodborne, From Software craziness. I've only ever played like 30 minutes of the beginning of each of these things. So
Except for Dark Souls 3 now, right?
Right, exactly. So I'm like curious now, like having broken through a little bit to actually like
I am like
see what that madness is.
I am like pathologically terrified of this kind of multiplayer, I think. You know, like the idea of someone else being part of my game for some amount of time, and I have to like, their enjoyment is like partially incumbent on me to enhance, and also my experience with the game is like resting on them to some degree, and there's this uncertain element of motive. It is like existentially frighting to me, and I hate the idea.
It's like Journey if the Journey guy could just turn around and like beat you in the face with a soup bowl.
Right. But I already basically never play co-op games because I can't actually put a level of trust into the other player. Not trust that I'm worried about dying, but trust in the sense of like, what if I have to just get up and leave? Like, what if I have to just pause the game because something in my life happens and I have to go do a thing? Like, I can't get over this, this like really intense.
I had that experience recently, in just kind of exploring the depths of that stupid NBA game.
Oh yeah.
And there's a whole component to that game, which is you get placed into like a virtual like basketball court, but like the kind that would just be like a park where there are like 20 basketball courts and everybody's just like playing pickup games. But so you like walk your avatar around this court.
This is NBA 2K16. By the way.
You just walk your avatar around the court and then there are just places in front of each court where you can basically just like queue up for a game, which is just also like, as a guy that never got picked to play basketball in elementary school, just triggered like my whole like, oh God, I can't. All right, will you play with me? Well, I'll be on your team. Like, oh.
I'm bad, aren't I? I'm really bad at this. I'm so bad.
I want to be able to say like, oh, you pick me last. I don't want to be picked.
Like, hey guys, that's me. They called me the wizard. I'll be on your team.
Well, that's the other thing.
They don't know yet that I'm bad, but they're going to find out that I'm bad when we start playing.
Yeah.
But I'm an avatar in a game, and I'm bad at basketball.
But also, I look like myself in the game. No. And I'm like super short. Like everybody else just made, of course, like realistic, like unrealistically huge people.
Right.
Like 7 foot tall giants. And here I am, I'm like the, 5'11", like point, like, hey guys. Like, oh God. It was terrible. And then there's a whole component of like buying stuff for your guy so you look cool. But I'm just in the white t-shirt with like the default sneakers, like I didn't buy like the Air Jordans. It's just like real life. And so like I walked up and then I'm like playing, like a 2-on-2 pickup game with this weird internet guy. And I'm just terrible. Like I was just throwing the
these
ball.
are actual people?
Oh, that's multiplayer. Yeah.
That's the multiplayer lobby. Is like a multi-basketball park.
I didn't connect the dots.
It's very like early 2000s idea of like what a multiplayer lobby is, right? Like, oh, everyone's going to have their avatar like PlayStation Home or something. Yeah. And so I'm just like throwing the ball like across the court and it's just like like out of bounds. Like I can't do anything. They're just slamming the ball down on my face. Like it's just awful.
So
I just sort of like shied away and just like, I'll go over here in this corner and like, ugh.
Do the multiplayer games also take place in the park full of a bunch of basketball courts?
Yeah.
Can you see other people's multiplayer games in the background?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's really good. Actually, that's really good.
No, they actually pulled it off. It's weird.
What if the multiplayer component of that game worked the way Rust works now, where it randomly generates your character, like all sort of visual elements of your character, and you have to just live with it,
just deal with it. I mean, being me in that context, I would much appreciate that version, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's weird. Obviously the only downside of that is that it just doesn't work very quickly. If you actually want to play a game, sometimes you actually have to stand there as an avatar waiting for the next game to finish.
Right.
That's
really amazing.
It's really weird. Anyway, yeah, so I had that experience. I had the Dark Souls. I mean, like, I think Dark Souls will just be that, but even worse, right? Like, magnified.
But so for me anyway, that's different because that is, the thing you're describing is like, I'm going to play a game, and it's a game where it's a point scoring game and there's a beginning and an end, and I can join it and like I'm in it for this amount of time, and that's fine. I don't have a lot of anxiety about that. The thing I have anxiety about is this weird like in and out, like co-op, like we're in it together kind of thing where I'm like, I can't just like allocate, this is going to take 10 minutes or whatever.
Oh, I
it's
see.
like a
weird
it's a
time
thing
commitment
that's
thing?
going to, because then it becomes part of my actual real life. Not, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's like not,
well, I don't know though, because this game was like, I don't know how long this basketball game was going to go on. Also, if I lose, I'm losing this guy like virtual points and he's going to be pissed. And so there was a certain amount of pressure and also just, I don't know what I'm actually getting into, but yeah, I understand what you're saying. It's more like, it's more like an actual whatever, like online RPG at that point, right? Where if I'm going to do this like dungeon, I don't know what I'm getting into.
And when the only MMO I played for any real length of time, and this is a common one for people who have played, was World of Warcraft. And I remember that the point at which I stopped playing the game was really the point at which I was level 60, which at the time was the level cap, and it was like, well, you've got to do these big raids now, and you've got to be on like online at 7 p.m. for 4 hours. And I was like, it was just impossible level of stress. Just like I had no fucking way.
Have you seen what they've done to that, like to solve that problem?
No.
It's actually really smart. I mean,
really?
they just have, there were a couple of phases of it. And I haven't really ever played that game much since then either, but, I just kind of know what it is. Like there was a phase where you actually just walk up to these like meeting zones, and then like you basically just, there's like a global queue, but it also stretches between servers.
Oh, wow.
And then, so you can queue up for like a dungeon. It tells you how long the dungeon's going to take. and then it fills in the different roles that like dungeon would need with people.
Like
and so like
stuff?
And now it's just, you can just do that from anywhere. But then also it introduced the problem of like, well, everybody in the world is the cool guy. So like if you're a like healing class, you can queue up in like 2 seconds. But if you're like a tank or whatever, it's going to take 16 hours and nobody cares about you. And if you're bad, they'll just kick you out because you can just get another one. And like it introduced a whole other weird like, problem. But yeah, it was an interesting solution to that problem. But yeah, Dark Souls is the version of that that's basically unknowable and scary.
Which is how all those games are intentionally designed throughout.
Exactly. Yeah,
which is really cool, and I respect it a lot. I mean, it was funny playing it with you, and even though you were the one really playing, it still felt like I was kind of learning the game, not in a way that I could reproduce because I wasn't building up the muscle memory, but just sort of like, oh yeah, I remember now. This is how this world basically works, and like everything is very intentionally low information and obscured in a way that's really impressive. And it's everyone remarks on this every time another one of these games comes out, but it's kind of amazing that these games are so successful because they just break like every rule in modern game design about how to communicate information and, how you should be servicing stuff to the player and how empowered the player should be. It's really crazy.
I mean, even things like when people are screaming at me to pick things up, like I am so conditioned to get some kind of UI call out on a corpse or something that tells me that I can pick something up off of it. And I guess in this game, there's like
you
a little,
have that.
it's very subtle though. It's just a little glowy thing, right? Yeah. Like in a game like Borderlands or something, it would be hovering above the enemy, rotating with an exclamation point, like pick up this loot, or you could just like suck it all in if you hold down a button.
Right. Yeah.
Like all these things have just become like the most efficient possible way of like grabbing loot. But in this game, you have to actually kind of look for. You have to break barrels to like find, like they hide stuff like all over the level geometry. It's just like everything's just hidden in like these little crevices in a way that like you would never actually do in a AAA game today, but was done frequently in like 90s games. Basically every aspect of this game is just a different tangent on video game design since that period of time. It feels like everything else went this way. And these guys are like, no, we're just off on this weird branch that nobody else is.
And stuff like menus also has not evolved since that point. But like, it's kind of fine because the whole thing is like all of a piece. It's all consistent with itself. Yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah, it's a weird game.
Man, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna talk about different games. So,
okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, just playing the game somewhat properly for the first time made me realize that there are just so many things that I just would never do or even like think to do at this point. Like, for instance, like running past a group of enemies just is not a thing a game ever wants you to do now.
Yep.
But that is a valid and sometimes necessary tactic in this game.
Or walking up to a huge imposing character and talking to it, and it looks like a boss, but it just has a conversation with you.
Yep.
Like, that shit's crazy.
Also, you can kill that thing, and well, like that NPC, like you can talk to that NPC, and then also you can kill it, which has implications that you may not understand. Yeah, it's basically just retraining your brain to play games, I guess.
That's totally true, and it's interesting because it simultaneously breaks so many conventions of video game literacy, but also requires so many. Yeah. You have to like, it's a weird combination of like requiring deep video game familiarity. Not requiring. I mean, there's like, for instance, that entire YouTube series of that woman who plays through the game with like starting from knowing nothing about it.
You think they're like just basic dexterity and ways to navigate and stuff? Or like,
she learned all that stuff from a relatively low level of like starting literacy, I think, as I understand it. I think her name is Kay. And, which is really awesome. But it also, took a really long time. But so much of these games, like, I guess I shouldn't say require, but reward existing video game literacy of a certain type. Like just being accustomed to like parsing these big, stupid spreadsheet like menus and looking for things hidden, as you say, behind crevices and stuff. But then also at the same time, there are a lot of things that require you to sort of push past your existing video game instincts and do the more patient thing or the sort of more inquisitive thing, as opposed to the default thing. And so I guess probably they really, on balance, they more reward the lack of assumptions.
That's true.
But it's just an unusual combination of things.
And the concept of exploration, which everybody said, you explore more while I was playing. And I think, like, to me, that means just walk around the level. But really what they're saying is walk around the level 20 times and learn this, like, as a map. You know what I mean? Like,
by explore, they actually mean internalize?
Yeah, internalize. Like, you know, in the way that you would internalize.
There's shortcuts and one-way paths that you can open up that become two-way paths.
You almost have to think of it in the way that you thought of, like, a Quake map or something. You know, like, you have to internalize all of this stuff, learn it, and then eventually you'll be good at this map, right? And you just I think people who play this game probably, like, a large percentage of them are doing it with the knowledge that they're going to play through this game multiple times, or that they just know they're going to, like, literally take their time in the sense they're going to die 100 times on this level, and that's fine. You know, it's just they're poking out at different parts of the level, and then that's part of the process. And I think for me, when I die in this game, like, as a baby, like, starting out playing this game, I just assume, like, I'm doing it wrong and this is just awful and this isn't fun. But you kind of have to realize, like, part of the fun of it is to, like, actually learn each little piece of this.
Yeah, there's a lot of trial and error.
Yeah. I mean, and you have to find the fun in that, or it's just not going to be interesting, or I think just basically making peace with that process is part of the fun of it. But yeah, anyway. Yep.
Well, if you want to do another one of those, let me know.
Yeah, we should do it.
Up for it. Yeah. We could maybe continue from your real character.
Yeah, maybe.
Instead of Luckman.
It probably the curve on Luckman is gonna
hit a wall.
It probably already has.
It's gonna turn into a vertical line.
Then again, I'll feel really bad in some ways giving up on that. So I don't know.
Well, it's up to you. It depends if you want to, like,
Luckman
have
triumphant.
two parallel tracks going where you have to play the same game over again at the same, like, in a staggered fashion. It's up to you.
If anybody who watched that stream has strong feelings about whether we should continue Luckman or give up on Luckman, Similar Face. That's
true. The character's name is Similar Face.
Yeah.
Because his face was generated with nothing but the button for Similar Face, which what the Similar Face button does is it takes the existing face on their character, keeps most of it the same, and then tweaks, like, some random elements of it, which means that the more you hit it, the more you're basically inbreeding that character by just accentuating whatever, like, arbitrary traits he happens to start with. So, like, you know, a, like, slightly larger than normal nose eventually becomes, like, a horrific pointed, you know, like, crag of a nose. Yeah. And, I mean, this guy ended up just being a disastrous, like, green-faced, pucker-mouthed, pointy-nosed, like...
But he's our disastrous, green-faced, pucker-nosed man,
by just pressing Similar Face
By just pressing Similar Face, like, hundreds of times. Yeah. It's a real catastrophe.
Optimize this seed forever.
Yep. So, that character... So, yeah. I have a feeling people from that stream are going to want you to continue that character because they've grown up with him.
Maybe.
Maybe not. Anyway, we'll see how it goes. But if we, you know... Subscribe to twitch.tv/idlethumbs if you want to be alerted to that. And Nick, I said you said you were going to maybe start a forum thread that aggregates, like, upcoming streams and maybe past streams.
Yeah.
And that would be really cool. So,
or maybe even a dedicated thread for, like, maybe just our Dark Souls streams or something like that.
Yeah.
You know?
You could also have just a directory thread that links to that one.
That would be good streams,
too. Anyway, so go the Idle forums, or if you go to idlethumbs.net and click forums, hopefully we'll have that up soon. Maybe you can put a skeleton of it up now so that if people go there, they can, you know, subscribe to that thread. But, so that was Dark Souls, and that was our stream, and you can find it twitch.tv/idlethumbs or youtube.com/idlevideos. And
we named those differently just to be good.
Well, it's because Idle Thumbs was taken on YouTube like 10 years ago when we registered it.
Yep.
I had a different sort of weird throwback game experience this weekend, which I'd forgotten about until, like, halfway through that discussion. I played both of these sort of open betas for the new Doom game and Overwatch.
Oh, man.
The Blizzard.
Yeah, I got invited to that, but I didn't have a chance to play it.
They were both really fun, actually, which is a total shock to me. I was not expecting to enjoy the Doom game as much as I did.
That's cool.
I am baffled by the way that I've seen people talk about the Doom game. I don't think it's, like, an amazing world-beating game or anything, but people are talking about it in a way that is, like, confounding to me. I've seen a lot of people compare it to Halo and stuff.
I think just visually, I think people are But
okay, but
also the Doom guy always was just kind of a space marine-y kind of dude, right?
It is not like Halo or any other modern first-person shooter. It is a, largely speaking, I mean, in the broad strokes, it is a fairly old-school, very fast-paced, twitchy shooter with with weapons that fire fast and like avatars.
Is there like a guttural announcer?
A what?
Like sort of like gruff guttural announcer. Is that part of this game?
Weirdly, I can't remember. Isn't that strange? That must not be that. I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, that probably is. Like I just honestly have no memory of that.
It would be off license for Doom to have a guy.
That's true.
Doom never
That's
had
true.
a guy.
Actually, Doom never did have a guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Doom was never really like a multiplayer mainstay, and it was like a LAN.
Yeah, Doom, I think,
game.
introduced a lot of people to multiplayer because it kind of introduced that to the lexicon of PC gaming at all.
Yeah,
but it, But Quake Doom was of the era where it had two checkboxes of like, am I playing with a modem or a null modem serial cable?
Yeah.
IPX.
Yeah, or IPX.
Yeah, IPX.
Like.
It's kind of like Warcraft to StarCraft, where Warcraft was kind of the first like RTS that had all of those same options, and then you could play Warcraft.
Yeah, it was really
that was my first. I think my first multiplayer experience that wasn't hot seat. I think was Warcraft 1.
Yeah, but then StarCraft just kind of was the sort of Quake
exactly.
equivalent.
Yeah, like the Quake equivalent. Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. This game was pretty fun. It's you run around maps that are like crazy confluences of like space sci-fi and crazy like hell stuff, and
like Doom.
Yeah, I mean it's hard for me to say based on just having played it over the weekend whether it has any lasting sort of power. I can't really tell at this point. But it was novel to play a game like that is that sort of fast-paced and basic and stripped down intentionally, because it's just not really the multiplayer model. And the biggest bummer for me of that experience was getting to the end of the first round I played when I saw my experience bar go up, which then made me realize, oh, God damn it, I have an experience bar. And then like I unlocked a weapon and I unlocked a new loadout slot or whatever. And I'm like, well, I already care about this 50% less than I did like 30 seconds ago. For whatever reason, the like modern Call of Duty style like leveling component of multiplayer, I know that people love it, and I know that it is what drives a huge amount of like
long-term engagement, basically.
Yeah. But I just can't stand it. I have never been able to get into it. I don't like it, and that probably connects psychologically back to the stuff I was talking about earlier about sort of reticence to like feel super committed to a multiplayer experience, where I'm like, I don't want to know that to experience all of this game, I have to live with it. I want to be able to just come in and play around and know that we're all on the same page and like we've all got the same shit, and it's just what we're deciding to use and how we're deciding to play, not have we played 500 games and have all the stuff unlocked. I just really, really don't like it. And I don't think it's bad. I understand why it's like fun and engaging for people. I just personally really don't like it, and it's a bummer to me.
I've talked before about Team Fortress 2 and this.
Yeah.
And because Team Fortress 2 doesn't have any persistent character stats like that, doesn't have XP or anything, but now that it has as many items as it has and as many events as it has and stuff, I think that it has crossed over to have functionally the same effect, because you'll drop in and have no idea what's going on. I mean, I talked about it before, that I do think there was probably a really sweet spot for TF2 where it hit like everyone mostly had the same things, but every character had about 2x the number of starting items available total in the entire game, and that was it. Man, that was like you could be rewarded for being a long-term player because you could get 100% of the stuff, but it didn't take that much investment. And also, if you played as like a soldier and you didn't have the rocket launcher the other guy had, you'd get it in a couple hours, and then that was it.
Right.
That was like.
Yeah, I remember that.
I played so much of that era of that game.
Oh yeah,
that was probably the most first-person multiplayer I've played since.
Yeah, you were really into that
since Quake 3, which is like the like ideal version of Chris, what you were talking about. I think of just
exactly,
that one is literally there are these 8 things, and there are these like 15 maps.
Yeah,
that's fucking it.
I know. Yep.
But those games don't. It's funny because it's funny to hear you phrase it in terms of like required aggressive commitment, because I suspect that what the experience stuff actually does is get casual people to sort of keep relapsing into playing the game. Like, I don't think that it encourages people to be like, fuck, I'm all in now that I've got this XP bar, but I think like it has this, it gives it the sort of the pull of an iOS game or something where you're like, oh, maybe I will sort of see what happens when I fill that up, you know?
Right.
But I think, well, it seems like it's toxic to you for the same reason.
Yeah, it's because yes.
You look at it and you see the infinite chasm
exactly.
opening up in front of you.
Yeah. I mean, the other end of that, too, is also just, like, keeping your core base happy, right? Where, like, I think, especially in terms of TF2...
Oh, TF2 just has, like, TF2 is like inflation, right?
Yeah.
Where it's just, like, TF2 items, it's like, you know...
It's its own weird economy.
The 20 of them being
scale,
special is no longer special now that there's 400 of them, but people keep demanding more and more and more of them, and they keep making more and more of them.
Yeah. All online games have that sort of, like, end game... dilemma of like, do we actually try to drop the carrot in front of these guys over and over and over again and like keep them going, or do we just kind of call it and then push out somewhere else?
I'm sure there are people who play TF2 entirely for the skill and the competition of it. I suspect that there is a subset of people who fret over like which items have a tiny % over each other, or they just don't give a shit and ban a bunch of stuff on their server. But I suspect that you're right, that the large majority of people who play TF2 play it just for collecting new shit and the wacky stuff that comes from experiencing that. Plus, I mean, obviously there's a middle ground of people who are incredibly competent at TF2, are not the best at it, but would still kick all of our asses. But then also really love just stacking a bunch of new shit onto their guy.
Which it's
really weird.
It's weird to me because I feel like when I played that game, or when I played games back then, like TF2, for me it was always just, oh, that's like my lunch game, or that's like the game when I'm bored and I want to play something. Right. It's like playing a game of golf.
Drop onto one of your like 10 favorite pub servers.
Yeah.
And
for me, it's like what my dad does with golf. Like where it's just like, oh, I'm playing golf this weekend. It's always the same thing, but my experience is going to be different because I might be better, or I might be playing with somebody else.
Right.
But it's the same game, and that's why I enjoy it. It's like a routine. It's like just a thing that I do. It's like chess, you know, whatever. That's to me is like comfortable and fun. Like I like knowing that it's.
But what if you could serialize that experience with like the story of your character's progression through that world, and you sort of had a reason to keep coming back besides just enjoying it?
Well, maybe.
What if just enjoy it?
You could try it, Jake.
What if just enjoying it's not enough, Nick? What if we need to incentivize?
Maybe you should try that, and in 6 years we'll see if it's maybe just completely ruined the game for you. Yeah. Anyway,
we should open a golf course that has this system. That is a real golf course. Yeah. Try to incentivize dads.
God, it's probably being done.
Yeah.
You should.
But.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, as much as I don't play this game anymore, I like the Counter-Strike version of this, which is that everything is literally cosmetic.
Right.
The people who play that game play it actually for stupid skins.
Also, right?
Actually, no, TF2 started the opposite, where they said, like, if you play as the demo man, the demolitions man has like the sticky grenades and the regular grenades, but then they said, maybe this character could be modified to be a weird like melee character. So the demo man got a sword and a shield.
Yeah.
And only one of the two types of grenades. And it was sort of like they introduced the ability to
like subclasses.
Like there's like, you could, depending on how many of the different things you equip, you could have like a sort of slider for how much of different subclasses you want your character to be. And I thought that was really cool. But now there's no sense to it anymore, really. But there was also cosmetics if you get sunglasses and whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
But playing Overwatch is really fun right now because it feels like what it felt like to get in on TF2 when it was new. Yeah. Actually, it doesn't feel like that because that didn't feel like that at the time. That just felt like a normal game. But now having experienced the TF2 arc, now your like memories of early TF2 acquire like a specific valence that they didn't have at the time.
Well, you also have the language of how a modern TF2 style game works, but now it's like without the cruft is kind of what you're saying.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It feels like that, where it's like, oh, I'm just going into the game and everyone's got the same choice of characters and it feels very clean. You know, like it feels like an unencumbered multiplayer experience in a way that is that is just uncommon now because these days, I think it feels like there are fewer multiplayer games being introduced than there were, say, 10 to 15 years ago. At the time, it was common for like any shooter ever to have a multiplayer component. And like at any time, any of them could actually become like a minor fad.
Right.
I mean, fucking Half-Life 1 vanilla multiplayer, people actually played that. And that's a thing that just doesn't happen anymore. You don't, people don't just like, it happens sometimes if you're like Naughty Dog and you can afford to sink a ton of money into Uncharted multiplayer, and then that develops its own little kind of community.
Mm-hmm.
But, for the most part, it is more common now for that stuff to be more stratified.
Yep.
And so there just aren't as many multiplayer games going around. And so playing one, at least not large scale, ambitious multiplayer of this sort. And so playing one that is really heavily built out, by a company like Blizzard, which puts a ton of polish into everything, but is new and doesn't yet have all that stuff on top. And I don't know what the long-term plan for this game is, so I don't know what they're going to do, but it felt really good. Like it just was like a relief.
What is the sort of the gist of Overwatch? What are the sort of the major ingredients that are being mushed together into this game?
There are sort of
like, is it first person? Is it third person?
It's a first person game, and it's a shooter, basically a multiplayer shooter. What I played was this objective based thing where you capture points, capture points.
Okay.
Where
you capture points.
You capture points.
I think there's also a mode that is sort of like the TF2 Payday, where you push the cart or whatever.
Okay.
That's mine cart or whatever they.
I didn't play.
What they call it. Payload. But I think there is one that's similar to that. I think people have made comparisons to just like Team Fortress and Dota, and sort of like a weird mashup of that.
There are more characters than there are in TF2.
Yeah.
And they're split up into three categories of, like support and defense and offense, essentially. I don't remember if that's what they're called, but I think that's basically what it is. And so that has that kind of Dota feel. Yeah. There aren't nearly as many characters that there are in Dota, but it's like, okay.
I bet there will be eventually,
There are
Chris.
There are a lot of characters to play relative to, say, a typical shooter style game, and they're in these like broad categories, so it just feels like you're.
Are there capped team sizes? Like you say, there's 9 characters, but are the games like?
I didn't say there were 9 characters.
I thought you said.
I think there's like 15.
Oh, there's 15. Sorry, there's like 3 groups of 5 or something like that.
Yeah.
Is the actual play capped at like 5v5 or something like that, or is it? Or
no,
is
you
it
can
just
choose whatever character you want, and you can switch them every time you die, and it's not like
it's not. So it doesn't have any of the Dota style pick your team, and that's what you're going.
No.
Okay.
It's like it's shooter style. You just pick them whenever, and it's it's all much like the Doom. I mean, it's not like Doom in very many respects, other than that it feels like the kind of multiplayer experience that we sort of grew up with as PC gamers of a certain era, right? Like it's like, oh yeah, it's like a Team Fortress-y game. It's like this weekend I played basically a new Quake-y game and a new Team Fortress-y game, and they were, they're both pretty high production value.
That's also a surprise.
Yeah, it was just weird. It was like, it was fun. It was a fun, experience.
Go ahead. You said and.
The thing that is fun about the Overwatch characters, and this is the total opposite of the sort of Doom Quake style, is that, like Dota, they have wildly divergent skills, right? So like I played, there are characters with like huge heavy guns that are slower, and then there are characters that can like basically fly, and then also like Dota, you have these sort of ultimate attacks that you sort of charge up over a long period of time, and then you unleash them and they're a big deal. Like the character I ended up playing the most was, I think, called Farah, and she's like, I think sort of like she has wings and she can sort of fly for brief periods of time with a charged up sort of fly, and then her ultimate attack, she sort of shoots up into the air and then hovers in the air for about 6 seconds, and then for the duration of that 6 seconds, just a barrage of missiles. She just
it's like when you get the Smash Ball in modern Smash Bros. Games.
Exactly, yeah. But it's, but like Dota has a really direct comparison to this, right? With your ultimate. And so, and what I remember that the first time I used it, I totally wasted it, and I just basically shot it into a wall because I didn't know what I was doing. But the second time, it was amazing, right? Like the entire enemy team was gathered in the control point, and they had it totally on lock. and I wiped out their entire team with one ultimate. Like, I got a team kill individually and captured the point, and it was like, holy shit.
You looked at that and you're like, that's a thing that no team will allow happen to themselves
I know,
about
like,
2 weeks after the game ships.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But you get that sense of, like, it's that really good kind of element that games like Smash or Dota have, which are very different games, but they both have this element of, like, you can tell they're very skill based, and they're not, like, at high level, they're probably not going to be repeatedly exploitable, but they both have outrageous shit in them that if you do it right, you can just wipe the entire team.
Yeah, I love stuff like that. I like when one character's move set in a game like this has such a high level of contrast like that, and like the sort of risk and reward of time or scarcity that you can just like have the most bombastic fucking thing happen. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whereas, and then then the game seamlessly fades back into the noise
the game
of regular
just corrects
shooter
for itself and you know, basically keeps going. But yeah, it seemed really fun to me. It's been a long time since I've played a sort of really dedicated multiplayer game regularly for long periods of time at a time. So I don't feel qualified to really appraise either Doom or Overwatch. Mm-hmm. I suspect Overwatch is going to be the one with more staying power, but beyond that, I don't really have the confidence to say, like, oh, this game is really great compared to all the other examples of it that you could be playing. I don't know, because I'm just too out of touch with multiplayer, but definitely as someone who sort of came of age in a multiplayer world where the games that inspired both of these games were like formative experiences, it felt like really fun to be like, oh, I actually know what I'm doing. It was like, you know, like I went into Doom and I was consistently in like the top 2 at the end of each map because I'm like, I actually know how to do this. I know, I get this.
Hearing
like,
you
I
talk,
have these skills.
Hearing you talk about Overwatch also reminds, and the like lack of being able to assess it reminds me that I also know nothing about Battleborn, which is 2K and Gearbox's this. Like, it's their crazy class-based first-person multiplayer Dota-infused thing. So,
I don't know anything about that one either.
Yep.
Have you played any of these games, Nick?
No.
Yeah.
Nope.
And Battleborn, I think, also recently had an open beta.
Yeah, it's coming out in a month, I think, actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Overwatch is the one that started as a Blizzard MMO project, I think, and then they crushed it.
It was like the combat component of that MMO.
Right, but
crazy.
this world design and characters and stuff are part of a way huger game that was supposed to be like Blizzard's next big MMO, and then that shat the bed, and then they pulled out of the ashes Team Fortress meets Dota, I guess.
Yeah.
It's nice to see Blizzard making stuff like Overwatch and Hearthstone and these really focused games, because for a long time, they basically just became the World of Warcraft company.
Yeah.
For a really long time. And then even Diablo 3, like, as far as I can tell, has turned into a pretty good game, but it definitely was just like an infinitely long development of a style of game that they'd already made twice. And it's really cool to see them in the last few years ship 2 things that are not direct sequels, like not just like recapitulations of existing formulas that they've developed. Like, it's really nice. It's a
but
cool
still
thing.
have their like super high level of technical execution and whatever else.
Mm-hmm.
Chris,
yes.
Do you want to take a break, or do you want to talk about a sausage?
Let's take a break and then talk about a sausage when we get back.
Okay.
Video games. This episode of Idle Thumbs is brought to you by the Idle Thumbs Network. We now have actually 7 podcasts on our website, idlethumbs.net. We run several other video game podcasts and 1 book club, the Idle Book Club, and a Netrunner podcast called Terminal 7. Right now, we put out just a few days ago the most recent episode of the Idle Book Club about the novel Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. Next month on the Idle Book Club, we're in the midst of reading The Man in the High Castle by Philip K. Dick. I'm a few chapters in, and it's a crazy book. So I'm really looking forward to discussing it on the Idle Book Club. Our most recent podcast that we added to the network is Playscape Los Angeles, hosted by Teddy Deef, one of the developers of Hyperlight Drifter, which we've talked about a few times.
You should listen to this week's Playscape LA with Zoe Quinn to be reminded of the fact that she once made a game called Jeff Goldblum's Staring Contest, which I was reintroduced to through that podcast. So
nice.
That's my endorsement of that.
There you go. So yeah, we have several other shows up on there, including, as I said, Terminal 7 about the Netrunner card game, Idle Weekend with Rob Zachney and Danielle Rienzo.
We got a lot of
book
stuff.
club too.
We said that already.
Oh.
3 Moves Ahead, a strategy podcast every week, hosted by Rob Zachney. It's a good collection of shows. It's really fun to have all that stuff going up there every week.
We also ship out boxes of snacks and underpants and mattresses and all sorts of other stuff, like razors, I bet, are there. It's a podcast website, so Video game. Idlethumbs.net. That's us. That's our site.
Are we back?
Okay.
Sounds like we're back. Jake, you and I both played Steven's Sausage Roll.
We did. So earlier you and Nick talked about how you played Dark Souls. Steven's Sausage Roll has been referred to by, I think, Bennett Foddy, the creator of Co-op and a bunch of Sports Friends stuff, as the Dark Souls of puzzle games, which made everyone start calling everything the Dark Souls of everything. Not this week, it seems like, that hit its stupid apex.
Yep.
Steven's Sausage Roll is a puzzle game that is a fucking disaster, and I'm terrible at it, and I don't even know how to talk about it because I've achieved literally nothing in it.
Wait, you haven't completed any puzzles?
No, I'm really bad.
Oh,
at
no.
Okay, so yeah, I keep bailing out, so maybe my tolerance for them is too short because I've experienced many puzzles and started to think that maybe I know what to do in them, and then just get furious and throw hot dogs into the ocean. So I guess we should explain what the hell Steven's Sausage Roll is.
So Steven's Sausage Roll is a puzzle game that consists of essentially a lot of different variations on, as far as I can tell, exactly one core mechanic, which is that you control a little guy, like an actual avatar, not necessarily a guy, but an avatar in an actual 3D environment, right? So it's a puzzle game where you are in the world and you have to push sausages around, basically just cylinders that roll around the world. You have to push them on top of grill tiles. And when a sausage touches a grill tile, the sort of quadrant of the sausage that comes in contact with the grill will become grilled.
Will become cooked.
Yeah. And you have to, every surface of the sausage has to become grilled exactly one time. And the level is not over until all the sausage on the level have become fully grilled. And if you
Exactly once.
If you overgrill a sausage or if you accidentally push it into the ocean, because these all take place on little islands, you lose the level and you have to try it again.
Yeah, this becomes incredibly difficult because your character takes up one tile and you move one tile at a time, but your character has a fork sticking out of the front of it that is the size of one tile, and the fork or your character seem like they can push the sausage around. But the thing that makes the game borderline impossible but also good is the way that turning works, because you have a fork swinging out in front of you. Like if you're facing up and then you turn to the left, your character rotates 90 degrees counterclockwise, which swings the fork around, which means that if there's a sausage in between there, you'll just bump it one tile. So you can roll sausages around. You can cleverly maneuver yourself so that you can kind of just like slide a sausage one tile over without turning it over, but that will still count as cooking it if it's on a grill. Oh man. There's no such thing as like turn and move at the same time. If you're facing up and then press left, your character swings the fork as a turn, and then the next time you press left is a move. And all of these things do things to everything. So, man, you've got to just fucking think about everything. It's a really challenging game.
It's so hard.
It's
so hard.
Even like I'm a fucking sausage roll baby. I'm nothing. Like just cooking a sausage correctly. Even like I'm now at the point where I just ignore if there's a 2 sausage level. I'll just like try to do whatever I can to even just get one cooked so that I'll feel good about like even mastering that. And then I know I'm throwing away any strategy on the level. But man, I'm a fucking trashy sausage roller.
Trashy sausage roller.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I've completed like 9 or 10
all right
puzzles,
cool.
which doesn't sound like a lot,
That's like
and it isn't a lot, probably, relative to the whole game.
No.
But it was so hard to get that far.
Yeah.
It's so hard. This game is hard in a way that is, like, unique among games I've played recently, right? Like, Dark Souls is hard, but you practice it, and then you get better at it because it's got repeating mechanics in a way that a normal video game does. And then something like The Witness, which is a lot more similar to Steven Sausage Roll, is hard, but also it's, like, very carefully designed to sort of ramp you up in a way that has been, like, anticipated, and that game is hard, but it also, like, really guides you through learning to do these puzzles. Steven Sausage Roll is like
it feels like opening
brutal.
up. It feels like opening up a newspaper to the chess puzzle page,
Right,
and it's a whole newspaper full of nothing but those, and they are all grandmaster level chess challenges. And it's like, you will learn how to solve these by
probably
just
a lot of them are
solving
not
them.
Grandmaster level, but you still don't know how to do it, so it doesn't make any difference whether
Right,
it is or
yeah,
not.
okay, fair enough. Like, yes. If you, or you basically, it's all chess puzzles, and you have never played chess before in your life because it was invented
Well, and they're not presented in order of easy to difficult, or maybe they are, but you don't know.
You don't know.
Like, I can't tell.
Steven Sausage Roll has a world map, and you warp into the different puzzles by, like, there's an outline of the player character just transparently sort of hovering in the map. Like, you'll just see an outline of your guy facing left, and then if you walk into it and face left, it goes whoop, and, like, you warp into a puzzle. And I have not figured out yet if there's any logical progression to those. I assume there is.
I mean, there is, because the more of them you do, the more of the world map you open. So
Yes.
in that sense, but still at the beginning, you can still choose to do a lot of different puzzles, and
Yeah.
it's not, you don't know which ones are.
I spent a long time looking around just to see if I could find the easy one, and then figured out there was not one. Basically, that was my first testing the waters of Steven Sausage Roll. Was like,
Yeah.
how many of these can I get to, and is there any one of them where I can immediately see that I can make headway? And I thought that my brain was the sort that was actually going to be kind of good at this, and it seems like it might just be good at appreciating it.
I don't know how to appreciate it. So I can appreciate it in the sense that, like, oh wow, these are very cleverly designed and difficult and, like, impressive. But the way that people are talking about this game is sort of beyond me, right?
Sure.
People like Bennett Foddy, who you mentioned, who made Quap, and, like, Jonathan Blow, and, like, a bunch of people, not just them, but, like, a lot of people, who have less notoriety, are talking about this game as though it is, like, an unprecedented masterpiece of all-time video game design. And I'm not saying that that's not true. I'm just saying I wish that they would explain why they think that instead of just saying that it is that. So I can try and, like, engage with that opinion, because it's so goddamn difficult that I just, at least for me, I'm sure for some people this comes more naturally, but I just don't know how to, like,
It feels like it feels like the praise for it is coming on to me at least on the single axis of, wow, this is a ton of really incredibly well constructed, just like unique solvable puzzles where, like, there's so many things that a player could conceivably do inside of it that you would think that you'd be able to have a noisy solution to a bunch of them, but you can't. They all have basically an optimal single solve. But I don't know what that means. I mean, I see why it's attractive as a thing to go nuts over, but I don't know. Maybe that's. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. But I would like to see some of those people, like, state that if that's what they mean. I would like to see.
Right. That's just
like,
been my guess after.
Yeah.
Playing it and sort of going and, like, seeing that is the case, and then imagining if that's the case on the first screen, it has to be across the rest of the game as it gets harder. But I know everyone's just saying it's great, and I want the equivalent of Doug Wilson wrote that article on Polygon about the solo eggplant run of Spelunky, and that was such a good, like, using that one run as an encapsulation for some of the things that can be great about Spelunky and why people go so apeshit over that game. And I hope that we get one of the people who are lauding Steven's Sausage Roll to give it a breakdown / sort of, like, story of the game like that. But
so did either of you two play English Country Tune?
Mm-mm.
That was the previous game. It's very it's similar in how it sort of presents itself. That was also by Stephen Lavelle, who goes by Increpar. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but you guys surely recognize that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. From, like, the guy's been making just sort of free games on the internet for years and years and years. and then English Country Tune and Steven's Sausage Roll are both like larger scale games that you actually buy on Steam or whatever or wherever else and download and play. And that game also was rapturously received by a particular set of people. English Country Tune was. And I also remember getting that game and downloading it and playing it and again being like, oh, okay, this is cool and really well made. And it still just felt totally beyond me. So I kind of was expecting this when I installed.
I thought that Steven's Sausage Roll would be more up your alley than English Country Tune was, but maybe that's not the case.
Maybe it is. I can't remember well enough. I think it probably is, and then I think I've already gotten farther in Sausage Roll.
Yeah, Sausage Roll is like the most difficult, insane version of Sokoban or something. Like, just of like...
yeah. So anyway, that's like...
I don't know what to say about that other than... Even though it totally ruined me and basically like shamed and frustrated the hell out of me, I still found the way that it works enjoyable enough that I want to keep playing it just because I want to actually achieve something in it. But I don't know how long that's going to last for me, but I hope that I actually by next week have maybe solved some stuff and like accomplished more than just repeat failure. But
this game is a funny counterpoint to The Witness, actually, because I really love The Witness in a lot of ways. And, you know, I mean, I think a lot of people are ambivalent about that game, and I am to some degree, but I think on balance, it's got a lot more going for it than against it. I think it was just really good. But that game was sort of an anomaly because it was, you know, there aren't a lot of games made to a high level of sort of visual polish that are basically just a series of puzzle. You know, one of the reasons that game gets compared to Myst a lot, even though it's very different to Myst in a lot of ways, the reason that comparison happens is because, you know, it's fairly unusual to get a game that really exists so that you can solve a bunch of puzzles in a world that way these days, of that type. But The Witness is still a game that has, even though it's largely puzzles in substance, it still has a lot of like video game trappings overlaid on top of it, which are, you know, a very beautiful world and like environments to traverse that have different biomes that look very beautiful and coherent.
And environmental like, storytelling.
Environmental storytelling, weird narrative elements. Like there are a lot of things in it that have nothing to do with puzzle games necessarily. Like you could put stuff like that in a game regardless of what the mechanics were, whether it's a puzzle game or not. Like those are just sort of 3D world video game elements, right? Steven's Sausage Roll is like, does the absolute bare minimum of all of that stuff, right? Like the graphics are just enough to convey this is a little character who moves around and pushes these sausages into grills. Like, there's an open world, but the open world, all you do is traverse it tile by tile, and it changes as you unlock more tiles, but not in a way that's like sensorily satisfying or enriching. It's just, it's there to connect all the puzzles and to unlock itself as you do more of them.
Its aesthetic feels like a game that you would discover on your friend's MAME cabinet or something where you're like, what the fuck is this? Like a lost early 3D, totally devastating, where like, why,
like
you know, like
Japanese import.
Yeah, we're like a weird
something.
Japanese import, like PS1 era arcade game that is for some reason a puzzle game that is just brutal and is designed to just eat all of your money.
Right.
But it's on free play now.
Right.
But that's sort of just like, okay, I guess there's a world map because that's what's in a game, but it's really just there to, you know, to do anything, to provide a little structure.
For sure. Like, playing The Witness felt like, oh man, it's just a bunch of puzzles. But then you compare it in retrospect to something like this, and it's like, oh, that was not just a bunch of puzzles. This is just a bunch of puzzles in a like brutal way. And it's odd. I mean, this is like a $30 game. It is, you know, it's really intriguing that if the game feels iconoclastic, you know what I mean? Like the game feels unbending in a way that something like The Witness doesn't. The Witness still makes concessions to video game players, you know, not in a way that feels like compromising or debasing, but just like, you know, it understands the way it's going to be received. Whereas Steven's sausage roll is like, you will do this, period. I am Steven, and you will roll these sausages. And that is it. And if you don't, okay, the game, like, that's it. You will not do it. The end. Like, there's nothing you're not gonna, like, wander around the world and decompress in it and, get yourself, like, sort of, try the easier one in this other area. Like,
maybe I'll look at this sausage from a different angle and see if I'm enlightened at all.
Yeah,
like,
no. You will cook the sausages or you will fail, and that is it. Like, period. There's literally no other option. Cook sausage, do nothing. And it's weird. It's just weird. It's just like having played Dark Souls, like having played a bunch of Dark Souls, which it still is not that, right? Dark Souls is incredibly unforgiving and uncompromising, but again, it's still like you can grind up if you really want to. Like we never did that, but like if you want to, you can just kill a bunch of enemies and get more like souls. You know, I mean, you can.
Maybe the only like partial equivalent might be the actual boss moments.
Yeah, the bosses. But even then, you
still,
could theoretically go and
you can give yourself a little bit of an advantage by just
there's also there's also like luck and strategy in Dark Souls. Like, you can win a battle by the skin of your teeth.
Yeah.
Whereas in Steven's sausage roll, it's like you will perfectly execute this sausage roll or not.
Yep.
The end. And it's just the witness has that in it. It's like you have to do the puzzle right or it doesn't progress. Like that exists in that game.
I understand how this works when looking at a puzzle panel, and the witness feels very similar to Steven's sausage roll to me. But then my experience so far with Steven's sausage roll is that there is not a consistent language that gets built up over time the way the witness does. Though.
No,
maybe that's not true.
I
don't know because I haven't fucking solved anything yet.
I think it is basically true, and that's actually one of the concrete things I have seen people praise the game for, is that every puzzle has its own version of the mechanic. Whereas the witness has like a bunch of different versions of the mechanic, but each one teaches itself to you.
It stacks and then subverts and then you're done or whatever.
One of the things I've seen people praise Steven's sausage roll for is that just each one is its own concept and you have to solve that concept each time. And it is draining. It is like intellectually draining, like to a high degree. I find that game exhausting to play. Sometimes I'll just actually manage to go through and solve 3 at once. Not that many times because I've only solved like 10, but that's happened to me a couple times. And then if that happens to me and I solve another one and fail a few times in a row, it's like, okay, I have to. No more of this today. No more today. It is like eroded enough brain cells that I can feel. I can
no
feel
sausages.
It, like I can like physically feel myself be sapped of something, and I don't know what it is, but I can feel myself being diminished in a tiny way. Not like diminished in the sense of humiliation or something, which sometimes like I don't care about that aspect really. Like I don't mind knowing that I'm bad at something or not smart enough.
No, but your brain is so active that it feels like a hard day's work or something.
Exactly.
Like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, exactly. It's like strenuous. It's crazy. So I don't know if I should recommend this game or not, but if you think you like hard as shit puzzles, get Steven's sausage roll because they're hard as shit.
It's available on Linux.
Yeah. Well, you want to do some reader mail?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay. Let's see what we got. All right. So, John Gordon writes, I've been catching up on old episodes, and a few weeks ago I listened to episode 223, Troll Clone Today, and I heard Nick describe his experience with GTA 5 troll clones. Watching the video was incredible. A few days later, I saw the title of a forthcoming episode, number 247, titled The Clone Progenitors. My excitement grew. I just caught up with the episode in question, and I learned that the title related to companies of the Doom clone era. I couldn't stop smiling because what I'd been looking forward to, what I hoped for, was a tell-all email from a high-ranking GTA 5 clone progenitor. No episode titles beyond 247 look promising in this regard, but I haven't given up hope. Ciao, John from Newcastle, Australia. On a side note, I realize now that I would have known it wasn't to be if I'd looked at the games discussed list for the episode, but this is not included in the RSS feed text description. It would be helpful for those of us catching up on old episodes if the RSS feed had this information.
We know that our RSS feed needs to have a rev. It's the number of things that most podcast clients will allow in an RSS feed, feature-wise, is way above the stuff that we do in ours. So
yeah,
we'll try to beef that up at some point.
Yep. The main reason I read that email was to remind us on the record that we have to actually do that.
Yeah.
Because we've been meaning to do that in a while. We have some small scale website improvements that we're making, actually starting now. So hopefully that stuff will start to get a little better. All right. So Wizard writes, if Nick gets a PhD in robotics, would he be known as Dr. Robotnik?
Yes.
Okay. Answered. Patrick Paquin writes,
I will never get a PhD in robotics.
You're going to need one to deal with the oncoming new order, the new reality.
That's true.
What if you then got really fat and were relocalized to Dr. Eggman? I'd be really bummed.
Yeah.
You mean re-unlocalized, basically?
Yeah, you'll always be Dr. Robotnik to me.
Okay.
Patrick Paquin writes, Dark Souls 3 character creator. Hey guys, I'm a character artist, and I was bummed when I went into the character creator of Dark Souls 3 and found that the default pre-made characters all looked, quote, strange at best. Since the developers Since it's not very easy to create good-looking characters, I wouldn't be too hard on yourself for not being able to make a human-looking protagonist. I understand the allure of creating your own character in an RPG, but personally, I would have preferred choosing from a selection of better-looking pre-made models. After about 30 minutes of fiddling with sliders, I said fuck it and started the game as a knight because the helmet covered the character's face. What do you think about this type of procedurally generated face creator stuff, and more generally, procedural generation in terms of an aesthetic choice? Thanks for the podcasts, Patrick.
I don't know what I think about procedural generation specifically. I mean, I feel like this character creator actually, it's clearly not great in the sense that it's difficult to make yourself, for instance. I was actually able to make Janelle.
Yeah, you did a really good job making Janelle.
Yeah, it took 2 hours. Yeah. I looked up at the clock and went, Jesus Christ, how did this take so long? But I was pleased that it was possible. Then I tried to make myself, which was a disaster.
The thing that was the most amazing to me is how much you nailed her chin.
Yeah,
that was really remarkable.
There are a lot of cheek chin controls,
right, yeah.
but it was a whole day of just experimentation. But I did do it. I don't know. I think God, I forget what I was going to say about this. I don't know.
I don't have very strong feelings about it. But I know that there are a lot of people who do. I know that there are a lot of people for whom the ability to define how your character looks is really personally important to them. And so I just sort of come out neutral on it. And I feel like I probably also, all things considered, don't care that much about this level of character creation. But I know that for some people it's really important. So I'm like, okay, well, if the definition of a character is not actually important to the content of the game, which it is not in a game like Dark Souls, because the way your character looks has really zero relationship to anything that happens in the game, then yeah, just have that. Why not? Why not? Because there are people for whom that's important. So
yeah,
yeah. I guess I'm really similar to you, Chris. I guess whenever I play a game that has a character creator, I get momentarily excited about it, dick around for a minute, feel kind of disappointed that the amount of effort that I care to put into it is not going to yield the thing that I think is really cool. And then I often just press the random button and start. Unless it's a game that I think the things that I do on that screen are actually going to elicit a response in the game based on the things that I do, which is not common.
Yeah.
But in those cases, I care. But otherwise, I usually just make the most ostentatious, stupid character by picking the stupidest hair and the stupidest eyes. And then I just am kind of annoyed when I'm in the game. I'm I gotta look at this fucking guy all the time.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be here. She wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Oh well. People ask about character creator stuff to us whenever one of these games comes around, and I always feel like we give shitty non-answers because we're people who just don't care. And I always want to say Steve Gaynor, who cares a ton,
right?
Or
because I think there's not.
Or Sean,
what are you going to say about it, right? The point of them is that they're genericized. I think it's hard to have strong opinions most of the time unless you're someone who just has always had a strong connection to this stuff. As you say, Steve. But a thing that I find really interesting that is related to this that I alluded to earlier is what the game Rust is doing right now, which is to randomly assign race and gender. Yeah, I think that's really cool. What's interesting about
a lot of people don't like it though.
A lot of people don't like it, and what's interesting about
for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, for different reasons. What's interesting about it is that the negative reaction is coming from two different camps, which are frequently opposed to one another.
Yeah.
Some of the people who don't like it because they're just dudes who don't want to play as a woman, and that's basically the end of it. And it's just like, I want a person who, like,
or if they're going to play as a woman, they want to make the whatever, like, most attractive woman to them, right?
Exactly. And then the other objection,
hilarious that they can't.
Right. The other objection comes from sort of like a subset of the kind of progressive social justice community, I would say. Particularly a number of trans people have said that it is like uncomfortable to not be able to like make the choice of gender in their character. And I understand where that's coming from for sure. Obviously, I can't like understand it personally in the same way because it's not my specific experience. But I think that on balance, it is better for there to be a game that does this, even if it is uncomfortable for some people, because it forces like the entire community to have to coexist in this way. Like it is totally a bummer that for some people it is uncomfortable, and like I don't really have a great answer for that, unfortunately, but it's not my game, so I guess it's not my job to have an answer to it. But I do think that it is really interesting to have a game whose population is actually sort of representative of a real population. And that is just not something that you can ever have with either predefined characters or entirely user selected characters. Like the only way to actually get a real gender balance and a real racial balance is to take it out of the hands of players, because as long as players can choose them, it's going to be biased towards like the existing sort of prejudices and preferences of the community playing the game, which is itself self-selecting based on like all kinds of other things.
It's interesting though, because that then the fact that there is a very non-balanced player base playing as an algorithmically ensured to be balanced set of avatars means that collection of player avatars becomes an incredibly weirdly faceted prism through which all of those people's personal feelings are going to be put.
That's true, although
I'm not saying that's bad. I mean, it's interesting.
No, I know, but I think like the reality probably is that, and I don't play Rust, so I'm assuming this, possibly erroneously, but I would imagine that past a point, you're just playing the game and you're going to optimize your play towards just like the things that will help you play the game better. And the specifics of the like these various sort of definitional attributes will just meld into the fabric of the game the same way they would if people created the character. And eventually it will just be a like tapestry of different characters playing the game. And I think that it is good for that to exist in the world of online video games, because there just isn't another example of it. Like the only way to sort of encourage that in a game where people can choose their own characters is to tie those like race and gender characteristics to an incredibly well-balanced character set, like character ability set, such that it's like if you want to play the character with this ability, it's a black woman, and if you want to play the character with this ability, it's a white man, and so on and so on and so on, and then balance it so well that you basically enforce. But that just never actually happens. And also
somehow manage to avoid any stereotyping of assigning gender or race to ability.
Yes, like I just don't know of other games that do this, and so because we have so many games that both have totally predetermined. Okay, there's basically like 3 existing paradigms that are common, right? There's just a character and you have to play it no matter what. There's like several predefined characters and you choose one of them, and then there's like we're giving you as broad a canvas as we possibly can and you define it. Those
to
are
mush your face around. Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of games of each of those types, and as far as I know, there are none to almost none that do the thing that Rust does.
Where it just says, you're just going to be any someone.
Right. And I think that, so like, to me, it is very valuable to have an example of that.
Yep.
Because there are so many other types, and this just feels like a really cool and valuable thing to try. So I guess it doesn't really answer the question the person asked us, but it's the most interesting version of that I can think of right now.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's really, I don't
know. Nels Anderson, the host of Terminal 7, a Netrunner podcast on the Idle Thumbs Network, writes in, "Hey guys, you spoke the words of summoning and I have appeared. Why is Dark Souls 2 a bit less well regarded than the first Dark Souls? For me and most folks, I think it's level design. The world of Dark Souls fits together like an intricate puzzle box. It seems like you're stumbling through a horrible bleak wasteland, feeling like you're in too deep with no way back. You suddenly cross a bridge, look down, and it's somewhere you've been before. Now you can create a path down there, and it's the most incredible feeling, a mix of relief and accomplishment. Dark Souls 2 has very little of this. The levels are straightforward, and while they may branch a bit, there's almost no clever linking back with other areas. It's not just the satisfaction of a well-designed metastructure either. The levels themselves are incoherent as spaces sometimes. The most egregious is when you must make your way through a valley filled with toxic gas, ascend to the top of a dilapidated windmill, and defeat a boss at the top. But just after the boss, there's an elevator that takes you to a castle made of iron in the caldera of a volcano. Dark Souls Lordran really did feel like a tangible, continuous place. Dark Souls 2's Drangleic just feels like a video game place built for convenience, not coherence. Funny enough, the linear structure is basically the same as Demon's Souls, except Demon's Souls never attempted to make the world of Boletaria a single coherent space. Chris may remember, but Demon's Souls has an area literally called the Nexus, where the player travels to 5 different areas of Boletaria. The travel is just teleportation. Demon's Souls doesn't attempt to present the different areas as a single connected space. This is exacerbated by Dark Souls 2 providing a teleport fast travel from the very beginning of the game, meaning you almost never have to retread areas after you go through them once. I haven't played Dark Souls in about 3 years, but I could probably still sit down with a blank piece of paper and a pencil and make a map of almost any area in the game, and I'd bet it'd be about 90% accurate. Attempting to do that with Dark Souls 2 would be a disaster. If one is being really charitable, you could claim this is a deliberate decision, playing into Dark Souls 2's themes of things fading away, loss of memory, etc., but I think that's just seeing shapes in the clouds. There are other differences between the games. I won't go into those or how Bloodborne fits into the whole scheme. But while there were some interesting mechanical changes, and I'd even say improvements to the combat system, Dark Souls 2 seems to have missed the one thing so many people loved about Dark Souls. Maybe the biggest bummer is that Dark Souls 2 has the most and best DLC of any game in the series. The trilogy of the Lost Crowns has most of the best stuff in all of Dark Souls 2, but I suspect the experience of the main game left fewer people playing it, which is a shame. To have this not just be a lengthy email, here's a somewhat related question. Are there other game series where between 2 entries a bunch of improvements were made, but also the thing you loved most was diminished or lost entirely? Nels. Yeah, for me, Mass Effect 1 to 2. Everyone loves Mass Effect 2, I think, the most out of every game in the series, but I loved Dark Souls 1 the most because it had...
Or Mass Effect 1, you mean?
Sorry, I keep saying this, yes.
Yeah.
I loved Mass Effect 1 the most because it had a bunch of these areas like the Citadel and Noveria that were these really complex, interlinked sort of hub areas with a lot of subquests and conversations and overlapping goals. And they just felt so intricate and alive in a way that, like, Mass Effect 2 had some of that, but overall the structure of that game was much more streamlined and, like, snappy, and you're moving through... you're like churning through content in a way that was effective and compelling, and definitely, I think, probably increased the likelihood that people would actually finish it. But it had less of the stuff that I personally liked, even though Mass Effect 1 was sort of a jankier game. I liked that weird, like, fiddly stuff.
Yep. For me, I think that is probably the first BioShock to the second BioShock, which, like... Obviously, we have worked with and know a lot of people who worked on BioShock 2, so I don't want to imply like a bunch of huge negative things about that game, but that was definitely a game where I could recognize pretty objectively that the like combat encounters and the way that your weapon systems and your upgrades and just like the feel of that game was just a bazillion times more sort of considered, and they had the advantages of a bunch of evolution. But the thing that I actually liked about BioShock 1 was the sense of space, and that the story was incredibly simple on its surface, but implied all sorts of complicated thematic things. And that script seems to have been flipped on BioShock 2, where it talked really big about a bunch of complicated stuff, but kind of didn't feel like it was about as much as a result. I don't know if that maps to the question that Nels asked, but that was...
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair answer. What's funny about BioShock 2 is that I feel like in the years since it's released, it is sort of accrued an audience that considers it like the high point of BioShock.
I think that's a totally fair assessment. It still
I
doesn't
know.
stick for me, but...
No, that's both fair. I just think it's interesting because that game is sort of I think its reputation has grown over time among a certain set of people, which I find really interesting.
And I think BioShock 1's reputation as being sort of the pinnacle of the things that it was doing has kind of worn away, partly probably because BioShock Infinite ended up making BioShock 1 seem like it was less of a good look. Like just some of the lamer things in BioShock 1 got so accentuated in Infinite that
That's probably true. Yeah,
you can look back and go, oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
sure.
Games are weird like that.
Like how the Matrix sequels can make the first Matrix movie seem worse.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like Resident Evil is the series for me where, or at least even just discounting my own opinion, just looking at the opinions of other people, and that it just seems all over the place in terms of kind of the variant
Silent
of that
Hill
series.
is like a more extreme example of that.
That's probably true. Yeah. But I feel like maybe just looking at even just the jump between like Resident Evil 3 and Resident Evil 4, like you can kind of see how they got there, but like to me it's equivalent to Mass Effect, right? Where there's sort of like 1 through 3 Resident Evils were this sort of vague kind of roughshod experience when you're playing them, and then Resident Evil 4 is like this very like focused, like just well crafted, just roller coaster. And I feel like as much as I prefer that, actually, I'm sure there are lots of people, and I know there are lots of people that prefer kind of the earlier variant of that.
What's funny is that then sort of happens again with Resident Evil 4 to Resident Evil 5
No,
on.
I know. I was actually going to bring that up, but I feel like that's just more of an obvious kind of like, well, it's just not as good as 4.
That's true. Yeah,
they
no
kind
one
of
thinks
just
Resident Evil
screwed it
5 is
up.
better.
But I feel like if you look at, because they've gone back and re-released the original Resident Evil 1 sort of remastered version on Steam now, and when that happened, a lot of people went back and played it and went like, actually, I think this is the best game out of the series, and this is the best version of Resident Evil, and it's kind of a bummer that they kind of took it to this weird action extreme, and 4 is kind of the first spike on that branch of like, oh, maybe it should just be this really linear thing. It's still my favorite Resident Evil game, but I can kind of understand why people would prefer that kind of earlier sort of,
Here's a weird one that I'm not going to claim is like correct or anything. It's just for whatever reason was my experience. I didn't play the early Zelda games until I was an adult because I just missed out on them because I didn't have consoles at the time they came out, and those weren't the kind of games where you could really play them at a friend. Like I played probably the vast majority of Mario's, the early Mario games at friends' houses because they're just those kinds of games. Whereas Zelda,
you can play a few levels and you've played a Mario, right?
Yeah, but I think I played a lot of them because you can like start with the intention of maybe it's playing a few levels, but you'll end up playing the whole thing. Whereas Zelda, it's like
you're surmounted. It has a save file, right?
It's got that save guy. Yeah.
And so, so Zelda I didn't play really until I was an adult. And the funny thing is, even though Link to the Past, like leaving aside Zelda 2, which is a sort of a separate offshoot that I know some people really love and some people don't. So just setting that aside, the original Legend of Zelda and Link to the Past are the two I'm talking about now. And Link to the Past, I think, to a lot of people is the high point of the Zelda series, particularly the sort of 2D Zeldas. For whatever reason, I played those games like in close proximity, and the original one I liked so much more because there was this extreme level of like mystique and solitude and like weird creepiness that
I think people have made comparisons to Dark Souls and Legend of Zelda 1 in that way, where it has that sort of strange quality to it where you're not really sure where you're supposed to go, and like it's not really designed in a way that is logical or like for a progression,
right?
Whereas Link to the Past is very like, oh no, you're doing these things in this order, and this is the thing you have to get this key from over here.
Link to the
like,
Past, you can tell came out after Metroid came out because it's a Zelda. It has the same combat mechanics and world mechanics of Zelda 1, but it's gated like a Metroid, where it's like there's 3 doors you can get into, but you're going to walk one room into each of them and figure out that only one of those 3 temples can you actually get into the second room, which is very much the Metroid structure. Whereas Zelda 1, it seems more like you figure it out because you're just going to get wrecked in the other dungeons. Like,
And playing Zelda 1, I think one of the reasons this is hard to talk about is that most people who are our age at this point either like have not played Zelda 1 and are not going to at this point, or they have this like deep knowledge of like where a lot of the secrets are and what you're supposed to do. Playing that game as an adult when you don't already have that knowledge is crazy.
Man.
It is a weird experience. And it's really like evocative and interesting and seductive.
It's funny because you're saying this about Zelda, The Legend of Zelda and A Link to the Past, but I suspect that your opinion on Metroid is that you prefer Super Metroid? Is that only because
and that is because Metroid 1, I actually just sucked at to the point that I couldn't get anywhere.
Okay.
Like I literally could not progress in that game. I also
think Super Metroid's atmosphere and sort of
Super
feeling of
Metroid's
unknowability and
Super
whatever
Metroid's
is very similar between Metroid and Super Metroid. But Super Metroid leans so hard into the crazy weird tone and the sort of unknowableness. Like they know that that's the feeling and just turn it up. I feel like.
You know, the other thing about Super Metroid that's interesting though, like watching modern speedruns, you kind of realize when I played that game originally, my like idea of how that game functioned was not that it was as perfectly gated as like everybody looks at that game as like, oh, this is the game where you gate things and like the progression is sort of A to B.
There are perfect gates, but you don't find them first. You find all the imperfect,
you find everything
ones
else
first.
But then what you realize though is like actually in kind of a weird sort of breaking the game Dark Souls way, I mean like, and I did this even in some cases I can remember like watching a speedrun. I go, oh, I actually did that out of like, I played the game out of order originally and I just kind of made it work in the same way that we just pump like points into luck and somehow make it past a boss. Like it's not as perfectly constructed or linear as it's like if you just on paper, you know, game design of that game, it would seem that way, but in practice, like it feels like something that's less knowable and more sort of diffuse.
Because it's still a systems-driven game, right? So you can design it with a sort of critical path in mind of like, okay, this is the ideal playthrough of this game. It's like they unlock this, then they do this, then they do this. But like realistically, like you know, no plan survives first contact with the enemy, and so the game's systems are robust enough that they will not like collapse when a player who doesn't play your ideal way ends up bashing against the walls.
I think, although I'm sure even by saying this, someone is going to tell me I'm wrong, but my experience with Link to the Past is that it is less that way. It's more like you need this special kind of bomb to get through this door, and there's no end around, in part because I think there's no gravity. You can't,
that's true.
You can't, there's no physics system to subvert. Like, I mean, even just the presence of gravity in Metroid means that there's like one completely programmatically driven element in the game.
I remember talking
so you can go crazy.
To JP LeBreton, who has been on this podcast before, and is, I worked with him at Double Fine, and he worked on BioShock 1 and 2, and just a really smart game designer and person. And I remember talking to him one time when I was really into Spelunky, and he, I think, appreciates Spelunky, but never got into it the same way I did. And he was like, do you think that he was saying basically the thing that you guys are saying. He was like, do you think that the gravity adds something to that? Because JP is very interested in sort of more top-down kind of roguelike and procedurally generated games, which and he's like, why do you think Spelunky has this sort of infinitely extendable kind of emergence and kind of crazy situations? And I think it is that gravity. It's gravity and physics, which you can
everything is programmatically driven to the bottom of the screen all the time if it's shaken loose.
Yeah, which means that something can hit something else and cause a chain reaction in a way that is just really hard to do without a game system that relies upon.
Also, just the moment of like needing to leap off a cliff, right? I mean, like just those moments you just don't get in a game that is top down, right?
And
I mean, there's just no equivalent.
Super Metroid has a wall-to-wall jump that you don't need to learn to complete the game, I don't think, but you can learn fairly early in the game.
Yeah.
And then you can just do weird shit. Like there's a thing where you end up in a super high vertical cavern that is totally an optional dead end, and you see some like alien creatures wall jump up out of it, and you realize that they're doing the same animation set as you, and then if you can figure out on your controller how to do it, that's just a total skill-based traversal method you can learn.
Well, even just the like triple bomb jump trick that people have done. Like I'm sure that the guys making that game had done that while they were making it, and I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, but I think there are actually like areas of that level that
you can
are
bomb.
explicitly there. If you can do this triple bomb jump, you can get to this thing. Otherwise, you can't. But so, like, I think that,
Yeah, that kind of gravity-based cascade reaction just can't exist in a Zelda. I mean, maybe like you could bomb a guy off a cliff and then something else explodes, but it would just
it's hard.
You only have the
even
space
hard
of
in
the one tile slide that an enemy has when hit or something as the sort of unknowable procedural space.
Yeah, it's much more finicky. It's less more for like a speedrunner and less for like things that a person would actually do, right? Like you can
Metroid you
run into a guy intentionally and then you bounce backwards, and so you can get kind of like a weird
sure, but in Metroid you spend your
half A press.
Yeah.
The way that you try to push farther into the world of Metroid is by doing things like, can I jump and make that jump? Or like, if I slide off this, is this a cliff or is it actually a cavern into another part of the level? And then you will end up naturally hitting soft exploits, and that just doesn't, anyway, I don't know, we're way Dark Souls, what were we talking about? I can't even remember what we were talking about. Sequels to games.
Sort of
Metroid.
Streamlined things, but whatever.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's Idle Thumbs, I guess, this week. Thanks for listening to this podcast. As we said, we have plenty of other podcasts at idlethumbs.net/shows. You can write to this show at questions@idlethumbs.net. We've been getting really great email recently, and love reading it on the podcast. I've been replying to certain people who I knew we wouldn't have time to read on the air, but that's questions@idlethumbs.net to send us mail. You can follow us on Twitter @idlethumbs. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/idlethumbs. And we will hopefully be trying to do some more streaming in the near future, and we'll try to get that forum thread going to be a place where we can give sort of upcoming plans and archive existing stuff. And the Idle forums are also just a really great community to hang around in, especially as we've been bringing more shows in and the community's been getting bigger. It's a really good, just all-around community for talking about not just video games, but all kinds of other stuff too. If you just go to idlethumbs.net, click the forums link, and you will find it. And that's that. We will talk to you next week. Bye.
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 Goodbye.